So I was supposed to go live today, and I was having technical difficulties. So I recorded directly to my hard disk, and I continued to have technical difficulties that I didn't realize until after I had listened to the video. So the audio is a little bit Alvin and the Chipmunk sounding, and I did misspeak in one place. I said megabytes when I meant gigabytes, but it is what it is, and hope you enjoy the content, even though it's not technically perfect.
Today at the House of Hacks, we're going to talk about the absolute beginner's guide to your removable lens camera. Hi makers, builders, and do-it-yourselfers, Harley here. I help out a friend of mine who does adult ed classes for the local university here as kind of a teacher's assistant. I help out with answering student questions and things like that during labs, help them get through what they need to get through. In the course of doing that the last time, somebody came up after class and had a bunch of things in her hand and said, "What are these?" She'd bought a new camera and there were a bunch of things in the box that she didn't really understand what they were for. So that prompted the idea in my mind that sometimes as people that are really familiar with a certain industry, in this particular case, photography, we take for granted a lot of just kind of really basic, super basic information. So that gave me the idea of, let's just kind of go over everything that you get in a box when you buy a new camera and just go over every little detail. And hopefully I won't forget anything. And just take a look at and explain what they are. So this is a really, really super beginner's introduction to what comes in a new camera box. This was supposed to be a live stream, but I ended up with some problems with the stream in testing things out and that I couldn't get resolved. Just some technical difficulties that I still need to resolve. This last week has been really crazy and I didn't get as much time to prepare for this live stream as I was hoping to. And so I'm going to do this as if it's live streamed, but it's going to my hard disk and then I'll just upload it. So it'll just be a single take as if it was live streamed, using all the live stream software just locally instead of going out over the web as it happens. So that's what's happening today. Hopefully this next week will be a little bit less crazy and I'll be able to figure out all the little technical details to be able to get the stream to work live properly for next week. So anyway, let's dig into it. This isn't for any one particular camera. This is just kind of removable lens cameras in general. We'll have pretty much all this that I'm going to talk about. So I'm not going to get into the specific models that I'm working with here. But just to kind of give an idea of what you can expect, regardless of whether you're buying a mirrorless camera or an SLR camera, whether it's Canon or Nikon or Fuji or Sony or Panasonic, they're all going to be pretty much the same at the level of detail that I'm going to be looking at today. So first off, it's just some miscellaneous items. Usually they all come with a carrying strap. This is a strap that you attach the ends to your camera and you just put this over your head or over your shoulder. I have one that I use for my stuff, so this is a new one that I've never actually used. You also get just some paperwork for registration and you know, don't leave it out in the wet that I always just ignore. One very important piece of information is the manual. These have all the information that the manufacturer thinks you need to know, and it's really good to sit down and go through this, spend a couple nights in the evening and just read through it so you get really familiar with all the features of your particular camera. It looks pretty intimidating, pretty thick, but this is 3 languages. This has English, French, and Spanish in it. And sometimes I've seen up to like 5 or 6 languages in one, so they get pretty thick, but you know, it's only a third of it in this particular case. So it's not anywhere, and there's lots of pictures and diagrams. So it goes pretty quickly, but it does help you really understand what's going on inside your camera. Some other miscellaneous things. You'll get a battery charger typically. Usually these are things that just plug into the wall, and then you also get a battery for your particular camera. And each camera, usually they're relatively unique for each camera. Sometimes different models within a certain manufacturer might share a battery style, but you do get usually a battery charger and a battery for your camera. You do need to usually charge these first thing. So when you get it, open it up, put the charger in, throw it on the wall so you can begin taking pictures as soon as you can. The next thing we'll talk about is the lens. Now this particular body, when I bought it, didn't come with a lens. So this is just kind of this is another lens that I happen to have, but it's representative of what would come with your kit. They typically have a lens cap. It goes over the front element to kind of protect that, and just a round disc. Usually there's little clips on buttons on the sides that you press to just snap it on and press to take it off. Then it also has a cap on the back called a lens cap or back cap that protects the back element of the lens. And it just twists on and twists off. Coming with the lens also is one of these things. Sometimes they're flat all the way across. Sometimes they have kind of these scallops in them. These are what are called lens hoods. And what they do is they keep the light coming from the side from hitting the lens, bouncing around inside and causing light flares. And so usually they have just clips that they snap in and then rotate to lock them in place. And that helps. Generally, it goes this way for landscape, so the larger sections, if they do have scallops, the larger sections go on top and on the bottom, and the shorter sections go on the sides. There are sometimes red dots in this particular case that tell you where to put it on to line it up. And so they go on like so. Usually with zoom lenses, zoom lenses are the ones that usually don't have that are flat all the way across, long zoom lenses. So like my 70 to 300, just the lens hood is just flat all the way across. It's usually the wider angles is when you start seeing the scallops on them. And also they can be put on in reverse to make them more compact, but keep them with the lens. So they can go on like that for storage purposes, so they don't take up as much space in the camera bag. Another thing that sometimes comes with the lens is a bag. It's just a round, usually drawstring bag. That's just for storage of the lens, so you can keep it kind of as a keep the dust off of it while it's in storage. I've seen these come more with when you buy lenses individually than when they come in a kit with a camera. But somebody in class said that they got a bag with their camera, which was interesting. I had never seen that before. And then the last thing that comes in the box typically is the body itself. And they have different options and different features, but generally it's just a camera body like this, and it also has a cover for what's called a body cover, and it covers up the hole where the lens goes on when there's no lens on it. And again, it just twists on and twists off. It mounts just like the lens does. So that comes off, and then the lens can be put on by taking the back cap off, and the lens just snaps onto the front of the camera. Now, in terms of mounting the lens, usually there are, if you look on the front there's a red dot, and on the side of the lens, there's also a red dot. Hopefully you can see that. Put that there. There's a red dot. And those two red dots line up when you put it together, and then you twist. Canon, they twist clockwise. Nikons, they twist counterclockwise. So be assured that I'm not sure which way Sony's and Panasonic's lock on, but I do know that Canons and Nikons are reversed from each other. As far as the lens goes with the body, there's a switch or a button on the side that you press to release the lens, and then you can rotate it back, and then it comes off. It should always be real easy and smooth to go on and off. If you have to apply any force whatsoever, then something's wrong. Don't apply force. It should go on and off really smoothly, really easily. Before we get into the camera, let's look at some of the features on the lens. So we've already talked about the hood cover. There's a ring typically on the front that adjusts focus. I'll put that up so you can see that. So that adjusts the focus of the lens if you're going to do manual focus. And then if it's a zoom lens, it has another ring on the back that adjusts the zoom. Some lenses, as you can see on this one, the front element moves in and out as you zoom. Other lenses won't have any movement. All the movement will be internal. You won't see any movement as you zoom in and out. There's also two switches, one or two switches, depending on your model of lens. Most lenses have something called AF, which is autofocus, or MF, which is manual focus, and that switches between if it's an AF, the camera will try to focus when you press a button. If it's in manual focus, then you're responsible for focusing before you push the button. So if you're taking pictures and they're always out of focus, or they're mostly out of focus except for occasionally, you might want to check that switch if you're expecting it to be in autofocus and it's in manual focus. I've had that happen more than once. People are wondering why their images are fuzzy, and it's because they're expecting it to be autofocus and it's in manual focus. And then there's many times another switch called either image stabilization or vibration reduction, IS or VS, and that's usually just on or off. And that controls whether there are some electronics inside that help stabilize the image as you're taking the picture. Not all lenses have that, but now probably most of them do. So I think that covers it for the lens itself. Oh, one other thing on the lens. There's also some threads. You can't see them in this image, but there's some rings around the front, some threads around the front of this element that allow you to thread on various types of filters. This particular filter is just what's called a UV filter. It filters out ultraviolet light and is used quite frequently just as a protection for the lens. You can get other filters that add special effects to your image if you want to use those, but be aware that there are threads on there, and they can get damaged. They're a little bit fragile, so if your lens gets knocked around a lot, they can get damaged. So it is a good idea when the lens is in your camera bag or not being used to make sure you have the lens cap on to help. It helps kind of protect those threads. So getting back to the camera, we have the hole in the front where the light goes through. The lens gets mounted to that. And then we also have a button. It's always on the right side. It's usually a pretty large button. That's your shutter release, and that's what you use to actually take the picture. There's usually two levels. There's a half press, and that half press does special functions depending on how your camera is configured. Typically, that half press will do two things. It'll cause your lens, the autofocus, to kick in on your lens, and it will also figure out the exposure that you need for your image. So you do a half press and you'll get a focus, and if your camera is configured to do this, it'll sometimes give you a beep. And then when you have your image composed, you press the button down the rest of the way and it will release the shutter, which will cause the image to be captured. There's a bunch of different buttons depending on your camera model. There will be a bunch of other buttons that allow you to change different functions of your camera, enable things, disable things, adjust parameters, that kind of thing. I'm not going to get into any of those details because those are very specific from one model of camera to the next. And that's where your manual is really important to read that so you can understand all those things. Working around your camera, you have a viewfinder on the back, and that's what you look through. If you want to take a picture, you put that up to your eye to do your framing, or if you're right-eye dominant, you do it this way. And in that, there's almost always what's called a diopter. And on the side, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little knob that's on the side of the viewfinder, and that adjusts for your eyesight. It's basically kind of like a reading glasses for the viewfinder. And usually it has a center position, and then you can adjust it up and down. It's not a whole lot of adjustability. Like if I don't have my glasses or contacts in, it doesn't adjust enough for my uncorrected vision, but it does adjust for needing reading glasses to be able to see the image. And a good way of being able to adjust that is look at the things that the camera shows in around the edges of your viewfinder. The the little numbers down there that indicate exposure value and your meter and all those little things that it decorates the image with. Get those in focus. Because if your image itself is in focus, you can adjust this all you want, and you'll be fighting the fact that the lens itself is out of focus. So look at the edges of your viewfinder when adjusting the sharpness on your diopter. Again, on the back, there's also a LCD display. In this case, it flips out, and it can turn around and be like that. There's other cameras, if they don't flip out, it may just be fixed and you always see the LCD display. That display, depending on your camera, does different things. It allows you to preview post view your images after you've taken a picture. If you have a live view, you can use it as a viewfinder. Also, in addition to the small one on top, you can go through all the images on your memory card. You can adjust options and change features on your camera. You can do a lot of interaction through that. Continuing around the camera, there's a mode selector switch, and depending on the model of the camera, sometimes it's over here on this side, but this controls the mode that the camera is in for shooting in. And typically there you have manual mode, M. There's a automatic mode called AV on I think it's AV on most models, which is aperture priority, and maybe AP on some models. There's another one that's TV, or I think it's S is on other manufacturers, and that's the shutter release mode. I won't get into any of these modes. That's a whole nother video in and of itself. But just be aware that they're there. Then there's usually a P mode, and that's a mostly automatic mode where you can override things. There's usually a green icon. Sometimes it's a square, sometimes it's an A, but usually it's colored green, and that's full auto mode. The camera will make all the decisions when you're making a picture. And so that's a good mode to start in before you've learned all the various nuances of the exposure triangle, for example. And then usually there's a bunch of other settings that are automatic settings for use for night scenes and underwater and daylight and close-up and all kinds of different things. Depending on your camera model, there may be a dozen, 2 dozen different settings on there. And usually they're controlled also in a conjunction between the setting on this knob and the menu settings on the LCD. There's usually an on-off switch somewhere. On this particular model, it's back here on the back. Sometimes they're on the front. You have to read the manual to find out where the on-off switch is. Most modern cameras now have video mode, and video mode is controlled in different places on different models. Some models you put it in video mode by rotating the mode selector around, and some models they have a separate switch that you switch it into video mode. On the sides, there are mounting points for the strap that I showed first, and they just slide in there and loop around. Working around the bottom of the camera, there's usually a hole in the bottom. That's always a 1/4-20 thread hole designed for mounting on a tripod. And there's a lot of things that use that 1/4-20 thread in photography because it's kind of a ubiquitous standard for mounting things. There's usually a place to put the battery in. Usually it's on the bottom. Sometimes it's on the side. And the batteries just slide in. They just slide in usually one way, and then that door closes, and the camera's got charge. There's a door to put the memory in, And sometimes there's multiple memory slots depending on your model of the camera. One important point is that memory, I don't think I've ever seen memory come with the camera. You always have to buy the memory separately. And so be aware that when you're buying a brand new camera that you do need to buy memory for it separately. These days I wouldn't get anything less than 32 meg. 64 and 128 meg would be good sizes to get of memory, just so you have plenty of memory to work with. There's also other connectors on the side, depending on your particular model of camera. There are extra connector slots to be able to put in HDMI connectors, to put in USB connectors, sometimes remote control connectors, other types of videos, microphones. And again, the features that those come with, that come on your camera, will vary from model to model. Again, read the manual, very important. Let me look at my notes here and see if there's anything else. Oh, one thing about all these different buttons for controlling your camera, many times they have a multi-select mode where a particular switch, particularly the switches that roll or spin, they'll do one function if you aren't pressing anything, or if you're pressing one of these buttons and then switch it, it'll do something completely different. And you may have, like in this particular case, 3 different buttons. Depending on which button you press, rolling this will do different things. So again, be sure to read the manual. It's very important to understand how your camera works. I think that's everything I wanted to cover in this particular episode. If this would have been a live episode, I'd open things up for questions, but since there aren't, I'll just explain what's going on this next week. Monday through Saturday, I'm going to be releasing some fairly short videos that talk about the why of House of Hacks, some of the philosophy behind why I'm doing House of Hacks, and yeah, that kind of thing. Next Sunday, which is again supposed to be a live show, hopefully I'll have all the kinks worked out and it really will be a live show. I'm going to be talking about what you need to do to take your first photo. So tune in for that if that's something you're interested in. Until next time, go make something. Perfection's not required, fun is.